What's happening, folks? Welcome back to the channel. Coming up tonight, we're going to run through the fallout from last week's meeting between the fan groups and the board. We'll also look at Celtic's next 7 games and how they could shape the rest of the season for us, and we'll talk about some of the other news items that have come up throughout the course of this international break. I've got Callum and Lee with me. First of all, the basis of the video will follow, I suppose, the same as the minutes of the meeting. We're not going to run through everything because we'd be here all night and we'd bore you to death. We are just going to run through 3 or 4 of the key takeaways from the most important questions which formed the sort of agenda for the meeting between the fan groups and the board. Obviously no one from this channel was in attendance. I've listened to 1 or 2 podcasts from people who were there to get their accounts of it as well, boys. But I think I want to start with that first question. The first question, which was part of the open letter that the fans signed in huge numbers after the summer, and it is: what is the club's long-term footballing strategy, and when and how will this be communicated to supporters? So the minutes show that Michael Nicholson confirmed that the club's strategy is clear. The club aims to be a world-class football club in everything we do, and I'm already going to stop there, boys, because we've heard that before. We've heard the phrase that we aspire and we aim to be world-class at everything we do before. I'm almost amazed that Michael Nicholson doesn't know that that was ridiculed at the time to still be using it, especially after fallout like this. But Callum, what do you think that says about where the club is at in terms of how in touch it is with where the feeling of the fans is just now to be starting the meeting with the first question and sort of using that phrase again? I know that you can get bogged down in the use of terms and words and they don't mean all too much, but I think when he's used that before and it's been derided, I think it's a really interesting strategy to double down on that. What would you make of that statement?
There was a lot of things at the time that I was thinking, and now that we've had time to kind of let it settle, I'm still as angry as I was when I first heard those comments. What do I think of those comments? Well, it feels like a club that are stuck in the past. If you want to go back to the 90s, they run it as if it's like that. And I need to be fair that Celtic are very successful on the pitch. They've won a lot of stuff. But there's an asterisk next to that. Whether you like it or you don't, that's true. Because for a long time, Rangers weren't in the league. Hearts were not in the league. Hibs were not in the league. Aberdeen's been our closest challengers at times. Celtic have still won a lot, and especially trebles when Rangers and the likes of Hearts and Hibs all came back into the league, so the league was harder. But I think with those comments, it shows that the board never really done their homework. And then I sit to myself and think, well, if I'm on the board and there's been a lot of noise to get this meeting to happen from fans, the first thing I would do is I would want to try and give answers that make the fans at least happy or understand at least what our strategy is going forward. The answers that they gave and that comment about the club aims to be a world-class football club in everything that we do. Now, people that are watching this might not know me off camera, but my biggest bugbear of Celtic, and people that do know me, is the standard around Celtic. Stadium falling apart. Whether you like it or not, it's falling apart. It looks a mess. It's outdated. What Phil says, I get that these are a little bit higher, but I've always dreamed of having a roof at Celtic Park, right? You go to the Amsterdam Arena, it looks unbelievable. Imagine the atmosphere one night if that roof was shut at Celtic Park. Or could you make the main stand all the way around and just have it almost like a smaller version of Bayern Munich's Allianz Arena? Could you do something like that to make it a lot better? Now, I feel like I'm ahead of my time. And I'm going to say that because I've been chopping on for years about this. Like a team bus. People say, oh, it gets smashed in this. Well, Parks Hamilton buses don't get smashed. And we all know who owns them. We should be smashing them, if that makes sense, right? But obviously not, right? But what I mean by that is... No, I know, exactly. Don't condone that, right? But Celtic are so far behind. Personally, in my opinion, when I go into Celtic Park and the Lisbon Lions stand and you walk through the turnstiles, there's just so many things that hit you in the face that just look so run down. You look up and there's like not even like a roof. It's almost just like all open. You see all the pipes, you see all the wires, like everything's a mess. Hot water. Come on, we're in 2025 here and we've not got hot water on the tap. So the amount of folk that go into the toilet, and look, I'm on a bit of a tangent here, but you did ask me this. So remember, world class. So world class means that when people like Martin went to the World Club Cup, that's probably world class when you go to these facilities and you hear about it in America, and they're top class facilities for players and spectators. That's why the price is quite high when you go to these events, because it's world class. That comment there, world class, I'd love to take Michael Nicholson and just hold his hand and pull him around the Lisbon Lions stand. He doesn't even know what it looks like. He's never seen it. That's true. He's never seen it. He's never been to that part of Celtic Park, which is disgraceful, right? He's never ever seen it. The toilets are a mess. Everything's so run down, and it really, that frustrates me more than anything. So, yeah, about those comments, it pissed me off. I'll be frank, it pissed me off because it's just no world class. It's a lie, and I think the question about what is the club's long-term footballing strategy is what that question was on everybody's mind. Everybody wanted to know, like, where's an interview with the CEO or the chairman, anybody in a high power to come out and explain to the fans, this isn't a wee small club like Luton Town or a wee Bournemouth that you can just almost park to the side and make money out of it and run it well. This is a massive global club that you need to correspond to fans. They're pumping in lots of money. What is it? 60% of Celtic's intake of revenue is through the fans when they don't make Champions League group stage football. So the most money is coming from us. So the least you would expect is a bit of communication. And I know Michael Nicholson says, I'm trying to learn how to communicate. Well, before you learn, get out the job. You couldn't. That's like anything. Like, I'm going to be a plumber, but I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to start my own business and be a plumber. No, you need to go and learn. And then you get that job. You're in a very, very privileged position. And he's a donkey. He's just a donkey at what he does. And it comes back to that world-class football club and everything that we do. That looks brilliant when you're sitting on your phone and Celtic are losing at home to Braga and you're smiling because you know you're checking your phone going, look at the amount of money we've got in the night. Or these tickets, brilliant. And that frustrates me, and it comes back to that world-class football and everything that we do. Celtic are a million miles away from that.
Aye, absolutely. I mean, I agree with most of what you said there, Lee. I aim to be a scratch golfer, but the reality is I'm not a scratch golfer because I don't play as much as a scratch golfer. I don't practice as much. I never have done. I don't do any of the things that I would need to do in order to be a scratch golfer. And I know that we're not saying that the club shouldn't have aspirations to be world class, or it shouldn't have aspirations to be ambitious, but I think people do get irritated by statements like that when what you see playing out season after season doesn't match up to that. Whether it be we'll come back to the strategy, and whether it's the strategy or the implementation of the strategy that is said to be wrong here, but you can understand why a statement like that gets people's back up, can't you?
Oh, definitely. I've had the misfortune of I've been at the fans forum meetings over the last, even before COVID, and I've seen Michael Nichols. He was at the majority of the meetings before he was upgraded in his role, and even then the basic communications they're not able to get right. I'd asked actually at one of the meetings about why is somebody from the football operations not here to tell us, because a lot of the fans were asking about transfers, and we were talking before we started today of all the years that have went by with the Champions League failures. This is not something that's just popped up. It's been mistake after mistake, and the fans forum was a really difficult watch. And a lot of the time they took a lot of feedback away, but they've never followed it up and never done anything about it. None of it's bear fruit. And I remember one of the key points they said in spending 1.2 to 2 million a year on the maintenance of the stadium. I mean, surely even the money they're making, that's pittance. We've been asking for the main stand. Again, I had the misfortune of having a season ticket with my young daughter, because I thought she'd have a better view, being small, and I'll take her in. But the facilities were awful, and it was really poorly designed. I would feel for the disabled fans that were there as well. So yeah, I'm the same as you. Really frustrating, the words that they use. It's like, we got this in the other statement as well, about being a world-class club and everything we do. They're talking about presenting the football operations, actually at the fans forum and talking about it. I've been the majority of them and seen the minutes of them. I don't remember that ever happening because the fans were calling out for it. But
well, see, just on what you said there in terms of being at the fans forum, and there have been a lot of questions about the football operation, but nobody really there from the football operation to talk about that. This meeting is brought about by the failings of, or the perceived failings of, the football operation, but yet the head of football operation wasn't in attendance either. I'm not sure exactly why that was.
It's like, I think they've just drawn lots. I think and said, right, well, I'm not going to go along this meeting because I'm going to get apps. They're going to target me. He'll be the one. It's kind of like, I don't think I've ever heard him speak once. I don't know what exactly the role is. They keep talking about the strategy itself. Dominating in Scotland, the other words that they used, creation of Champions League players through the academy. I think one thing I have liked is the upgrades in terms of the training facilities. I think in that respect, I don't know because I haven't seen other ones that are in Europe, but it seems to be of a really good standard, especially the new facility at Barrowfield for the ladies and the younger players. So I think in that aspect they have done quite well, but creating Champions League players through academy and player recruitment, player trading, development, it's just like nothing at all. We haven't seen any of that, and that's not just this season. I think people get bogged down thinking it's just been this summer and Celtic fans are entitled and we've won so many championships and why are we moaning? But we're not asking for millions and millions to be spent. We're asking for the right money to be spent at the right time on a good quality player. And it just hasn't happened time and time again. So Paul Tisdale for me should have been at that meeting. He should have been more vocal. He doesn't have to tell us everything, but just give us a brief outline of how it actually works. In terms of who's identifying the players, because now we've got, whether they like it or not, there's a jump between Rodgers and the board, and they can sit and deny it all they want about we're all getting on nice and well, but there's obviously stuff went on. And then obviously they've done an internal investigation about the statement and the things that were leaked to the Sun, and it's all been swept, as we'll probably come on to. But there's just so many things that are failing it. And comms, me and my role and my work, it's always drummed home how important it is. Because if you lose your comms, you lose your stakeholders, you lose your recipients, as we call them, you lose everything. That's your minimum to communicate out what we do, and we've never been good at it. Never.
This video is brought to you in partnership with FPRO, the ultimate football training app. Winter is fast approaching, and in Scotland that means long dark nights and frozen pitches, but with FPRO your child can take their game to the next level. FPRO guides you through over 110 professional exercises to help you achieve technical excellence and master the fundamentals of the game that every player needs. FPRO is used by players from the top academies across Europe, and it only takes 20 minutes a day to see real progress. You can track your performance, compete against your pals in the app to move up the leaderboard, and earn rewards as you improve as well. Whether it's inside or out in the garden, the FPRO dribbling mat and app can help you maximise your skills. So if you have a son or a daughter, a niece, a nephew that's football daft and you're looking for Christmas gift inspiration, FPRO is the one. You can get 20% off with the code Celtic20 via the link in the description of this video. Thank you. Let's get back to it. Yeah, absolutely. There's lots you mentioned there that we will come back to. I think that the other thing, Callum, coming off the back of the discussion around the strategy was, I think Chris Mackay alluded to whether the supporters' concerns are around the strategy itself or the execution of the strategy. Now, if you ask me, I would say both. Surely the strategy, if you read it on a piece of paper, it's difficult to pick holes in it and say, well, that's fundamentally flawed, that's part of the strategy, that you want to create Champions League players, you want to dominate Scottish football, you want to play in the Champions League. They're all understandable aims. But the execution of that isn't matching up, and that's borne out every time we have to qualify for the Champions League. And we're going to come back to what the club constitutes as success in a minute, because it's covered further down in the minutes as part of this question. But surely if you keep, and listen, I understand the board would say, well, we're not failing at the strategy, look at the profit and loss, look at the balance sheet, look at the trophies we've won. But we know as supporters that the clubs that we've exited the Champions League to and the revenue that we've actually missed out on by missing the Champions League.
More than what we've brought in.
That shows you that the strategy isn't being met, but it's not being executed either. So it does beg the question, well, if you can't execute and you can't make the strategy successful, then is the strategy right? Where do you stand on
Obviously not. How, like, they kind of go hand in hand. Like, and so there was a lot covered there, right? And it was eating me away, right? There's many things, and it comes back to that whole world basic things, right? But the strategy for Celtic is they've failed in the Champions League when they've had to qualify by getting straight through, direct. That almost is like a cover blanket of going, brilliant, we've made the Champions League. Well, let's break it down. Simple as, yes, we have been very successful in Scotland. Of course we have. But let's be honest for a minute, the challenge has not always been there. There's not been a strong challenge. The only time we did get a really strong challenge was through COVID, when Rangers were brilliant with no fans and they won the league title, and we couldn't even muster anything against that. Lost the league by 25, 30 points or something like that. Something crazy. We crumbled, right? But every other year, Celtic have won the league by maybe 7, then 10, then 15, then 18, then 20. Like, we've won it so a landslide because Rangers are so poor. So again, Celtic might win it this year again. And Rangers, look at the state Rangers are in the now. So there's no serious competition. I get the whole Hearts thing. Somebody would comment saying, oh, but Hearts are doing well. Well, Aberdeen done well as well to end of October last year and then crumbled. So that could happen to Hearts. But it might not. But I still think Celtic are strong enough to win the title. So to say that success is, it doesn't sit well with me, because Celtic are expected to win it. They've got the biggest budget. They've got the best manager. They spend the most money on the manager. He's paid like £3 million a year. Nobody's anywhere close to that. Rangers is like 1.5. So that's our closest challengers as well, and they're only paying half of what we pay our manager. Brendan Rodgers is too good for the Scottish level as well. Nobody's really had a right good crack at him, or nobody's run him really close to the title in nearly 6 years that he's been here over these two spells. So the whole strategy comes back to, it's the Champions League, it's the players of, we want to make youth players into Champions League players. Who? Tell me who. Because that is fading at a rapid pace. Now, something that you were speaking about, Lee, and it really frustrated me, was we spoke about Barrowfield getting done. Again, I says that the club are acting as if they're in the 90s, and now that should have been there 10 years ago.
Yeah.
They should have implemented that, because now with the whole Brexit stuff that happened years ago, England are cherry picking our players because they can't go to Europe and take their best players, so they're taking ours. So it doesn't matter how good your facility is, as soon as somebody gets to a level, again, maybe like Martin's boy, Lennon, really good player, 48 goals last year. But what if Liverpool come knocking at the door? How's he going to say, nah, I don't fancy it? Like, how can you say no, you can't? Because they're world class in everything that they do. That's why Ben Doak left Celtic. It's as simple as that. He was getting a debut against Rangers at 16 years old. Daniel Cummins, like they're all leaving, so it doesn't matter how good your facilities are now. The landscape of football up in Scotland's changed dramatically, and that's down to obviously the Brexit stuff, right? So that frustrates me that we're behind in that matter, that we're now just getting these facilities. Again, Celtic's women's team are probably the third best in the women's division. You've got Rangers and Glasgow City. Glasgow City are obviously the most dominant team in there. They win the title most years, often than not. So it feels like they're almost doing it to show, like, look at what we're doing. We're actually spending some of that money that we've made over the last 10 years. Like, look, we're giving you a new facility. It feels outdated. It feels too late. And Celtic come back to it and say, but look, we've got all this success, we've got all this money. How much money have Celtic lost when they've been put out off of like Maribor, Malmo, Athens, Cluj, Ferencváros, Kairat Almaty? How much money has Celtic lost now? It's more than what Celtic have gained. Because Celtic haven't gained automatic qualification in the last 20 years. They've not gained it like maybe 10 times, I don't think. They've had to qualify more often than not. So they're only getting it by direct, going straight through by winning the league. So it's really frustrating when the clubs say that's like a successful plan, and this is our strategy and this is how we're going forward. I don't see the next player coming through at Celtic who's going to be a Champions League player. Who?
Well, we're going to come back to the situation around the youth academy at a later point, right? Because it is covered in another question, and there is some changes around that the club have been keen to outline, right? But I want to just to round up on this first question, I would say also that the best account I've heard of the meeting is on the RGC Celtic podcast from one of the guys who was there. I would encourage you to go and listen to that podcast if you want the full detail of how the meeting unfolded. But further down, there's a question around the nature of Scottish football, meaning that Celtic have a licence to play in Europe every single season, and one of the reasons for entering the Champions League 3 seasons and running there was because it was automatic through winning the league, and the board were pressed on whether they felt the results in Europe, the outcomes in Europe, have been satisfactory, and Michael Nicholson felt that they were, by referring to group stage qualification in 19 of the last 20 years. Now, Lee, can you try and think about the scenario that would bring about Celtic failing to make group stage football of any kind? Like, what would that look like?
Well, we're heading towards it, snowballing towards it in the next couple of years because of the coefficient. So we might even just be struggling to get in the Conference League because of the way it's went. I think I hate to bring them up, but Rangers have been a European side the last while, and they progressed a lot further probably than we should have done a lot better. But they're probably the ones that have probably kept it.
Their success has actually helped Celtic.
And we still couldn't get the job done. It was hard because we're relying on a lot of the other teams to kind of help as well, and that they can't get even near into the playoffs. So Hibs were great this year, and you just think they were going to do it, and then it fell apart. So,
well, see, just on Hibs, that's what I'm getting at. It's like the situation that would bring about Celtic not making group stage football of any kind, Champions League, Europa League, Conference League, would be finishing third in the Scottish Premiership.
Happen.
Finishing third and then failing in a qualifying round and ending up with. So to constitute success is just making group stage participation in 19 of the last 20 years, I think completely misses the point, particularly under the circumstances where this breakdown has come as a result of Champions League qualification failure 5 years in a row. What is it? It's 9 out of 12. It's like this is about failing against small clubs to make the Champions League. So to say, well, no, I think the success in Europe is there for everybody to see because we've made group stage participation in 19 out of 20 years. I mean, it's almost disingenuous.
I often think Michael Nicholson, and from what I've had experience of seeing him firsthand, it's all all the answers are like a politician. It's all top line, yeah, and then fans will go away, and some fans that maybe don't look, they'll think, that's actually not that bad. And there is fans that will probably support what the club are doing in terms of the money and not so much what's happening on the pitch. But, I just think they need to address it quite quickly, because we've already got off to a pretty woeful start in the Europa League campaign. We've got a big game coming up. If we lose that, we're going to be struggling to qualify. Then, I think they were needing a certain amount of points to reach.
So you need 11.
Yeah, to get the next few years kind of okay. So I don't think we're going to have to do too much else to worry about that in the next coming years, because it's going to be Conference League and the money is going to dry up. And I mean, it's still a tournament you would want to do well in, and I think we would have a chance in that. But
I don't know, we'd like to Chelsea.
Yeah, well, I know, but there's a lot more teams you should be routinely beating, but then the ones that we've fent out in qualification, you'd probably say the same about them. So I don't really know. It's just a top line that they're always going to come out with that at the board, aren't they? They're always going to use figures like that to try and get everyone back on side. It actually happens quite a lot throughout the whole. The minutes of the meeting, everything when it goes, especially addressing, what Michael Nicholson's saying, it's all sort of stuff we've kind of heard before down the years. So they're going to throw a lot of stats at it and things like that. But yeah, it's not been good enough for a long, long time. Never mind the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, I want to move things on to the third question, Callum, which is about what accountability measures are in place for repeated failures in transfer dealings. Now, the bit that jumped out to me here is, again, we've heard these sort of lines and statements before, even in the annual results and the statements, you could compare them from year to year when we don't make the Champions League, that the club would carry out an internal review and implement learnings going forward. They've been carrying out internal reviews after failing to make the Champions League for how many years? I said it before, 10, 12, more than that sometimes. But we're going to come back to talking maybe about the structure in the boardroom in terms of how long some of the non-executive directors have been there, right? But they're going to carry out an internal review, so that means the board are going to review.
They're marking their own homework.
They're going to review how they got on, and they're going to try and learn things. But what we can see as supporters is that the same cycle keeps repeating itself. So it's an internal review of the board, by some of the non-executives who have been there for 20 plus years, who are elected. We're going to come back to that in just a second. But, I mean, it is ludicrous that even at this stage, given the repeated failures, that's what the question says. The question is talking about the repeated failures and the inability to get players in when we've got Champions League qualifiers. It's happened so many times. But again, as Lee's just said there, we've heard loads of these statements before, to just go, listen, we'll review it internally and we'll take the learnings going forward. There can't be any trust that Celtic will take learnings and improve going forward, because why wouldn't they have done that already if these internal reviews work?
Yeah, again, it's marking your own homework. It's like your child going to school and coming home and going 4 + 4 is 7. Brilliant. And then going back to teachers going, that's wrong. No, it's not. No, it's not. I done my own homework. It's fine. And doing it over the next 8 years, get up to high school. Right, kids, 4 + 4, 7. No, it's not. And it's got, it is. And it's just an argument. Like, it's a load of nonsense from people that are in a very privileged position, high power, and almost like it's, you're a wee Ned if you challenge that. You're a wee thug or a wee bam, or you're part of the game brigade because you're challenging that. Well, I mean, we put more money into the club than any other revenue that they bring or the intake. Yep. So I feel like that's a very fair question to ask. How are you going to improve when we keep repeating the same stuff? Was it like insanity, like that, like keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results? Like, and again, like it just reeks of the Celtic board. Like it just reeks through the whole club. Like the club are stuck. They are stuck. It's like quicksand, but it's not even quick. It's just slow. I just see them sinking lower and lower. And
you're talking about a business, like, or an organisation. We all, work for these companies. I work for one where if I was sitting looking at evaluating my own role, I wouldn't progress. I wouldn't be able to be honest with myself probably that I could do well there. I would just probably go, actually, that's fine, we'll just keep doing what we're doing. Everyone's going, you always should be wanting to progress and make yourself better. Like you've been saying, it should be wanting the best for the team, and it's not. It doesn't feel that way. It feels like it's the best on the spreadsheet in terms of the numbers. Like I would never be able to get away with that at my work. My boss was 2 above me, and I don't need to email them to get anything signed off or put in an increased bid for merchandise or something like that. Yeah. But they would be looking at me, and then it would go to the main boss and say, right, how did Lee get on his review? And they would discuss it. So they're not even doing that, like reviewing themselves. They're going to sit and all go around the table. Have we done all right?
So basically, from the outside, it looks like Dermot Desmond has got a number in his head at the start of the season and says, you have to get to this number. You sell a player if you don't make Champions League. You do not spend the X, Y and Z in the transfer market. If we don't get Champions League, this is what you do spend. If you do make it, and all these numbers need to be made, and that is purely it. It's a numbers game. So he walks.
Sorry to interrupt you. Right, we're going to come back to the parameters, right, and how the club deals with transfers and where we think the lines are maybe drawn in terms of when bids need to go for approval and stuff, right?
He's fired up.
I want to cover that when we get to it, right? But I just want to round off this point about accountability and independence. With this section where Chris Mackay says that the club adopts the QCA code and not the UK Corporate Governance Code. UK Corporate Governance Code says that non-executive directors kind of stop being considered independent after 9 years. And like I say, there's a couple of non-executive directors at Celtic who have been there for 20 plus years. Now, the role of a non-executive director is really to hold the executive directors to account, to make sure that they are, to challenge them, to challenge a strategy, to make sure that they are pushing things forward, that things are being changed if they need to be, and they're being held accountable in some way, right? So part of this QCA code is that all the board members stand for election at an AGM every year. And Michael Nicholson added that the matter of independence is also assessed by the board as part of the annual board governance process. So we've talked about the review of the board by the board. The sort of judgment of independence is also of the board by the board as well. You've got to, I mean, do they just sit about and go, Michael, are you independent? Peter, are you independent? Aye. Right, brilliant, that's us, moving on.
And for another year.
So, again, you've got to wonder. I mean, the thing it seems like there's an insistence that the board and the strategy, everything's fine. It's just that they're not communicating. They're very, and listen, the communication is way short, but they're very keen to say, is it not just that we're not communicating things properly? Everything's all right. We just need to do a better job communicating, right? And that really misses the point. But what they're saying about this, the length of these terms for some of the non-execs is there's huge value in maintaining stability. This is quoting, stability and experience in a sector as volatile as football. Now, Celtic haven't been very volatile for the last 10 to 15 years. It's been very stable, very financially stable, very stable on the pitch because we've won so many league titles. We've got a very strong position of dominance. So to sort of justify the length of term for some of these non-executive directors by saying, well, you kind of need that stability in football because football can be volatile at times. Again, it doesn't ring true. It doesn't seem right for a club like Celtic. Surely Celtic have been in the position the last 10, 15 years where there has been a strong element of security, both on the pitch and financially. On the pitch in terms of the domestic success is what I mean there. So you think that if that intention is there to modernise and to maybe bring in some fresh thinking on the board in terms of non-executive directors, then they've had a good spell where they could do that. But I think some of these things reading between the lines suggest that there's just no real appetite to change those sort of things.
Again, it comes back, why would you? If you're the one that's getting whatever, 800,000 or £1 million a year in your salary,
getting comfortable.
Exactly, and it's getting stale, and it's people don't like change, people are scared of change. Celtic, I think that you're talking about volatile, they act as if they're a Premier League club and they go, oh, we don't want to get relegated because then we lose all the millions of pounds that we get from the Prem. We can't take that gamble, we just have to be stable.
Or miss out in the Champions League.
You're playing Livy, man, come on. Shut up, right? Honestly, that does my nutting. Honestly, it does. And again, all the clubs, and I don't want to repeat myself, but have put us out in the Champions League shows that it almost is volatile in that sense where Celtic can't get their house in order. They can't prepare. We talk about this year in and year out. I heard somebody on the radio saying, and honestly I nearly crashed the van when I was driving it because the guy done my nut and he was a Celtic fan, right? And everybody's fair to your opinion, but he's saying, can we not just move on and just get on with it? It's affecting the team. But no, they're affecting my pocket. Every year this happens. And again, people say, well, stop putting your money in. Well, I've cut my cup games. I'm not going to any of the cup games. I'm not going to the Rangers game at Hampden. I've cut my Europa League games. They're not getting any more money. Enough is enough. The last 20 years, yes, Celtic have been successful in Scotland, but with the amount of money and the position that they've been in and the competition that's up against you, who would they be successful with all that behind you? You would be successful. So they're using it as a blanket to kind of say, like, we're doing brilliant. And it really, really just frustrates me that in Europe, Celtic are awful. They really are, let's be honest. Like what have we done in Europe over my lifetime almost? Like, I'm 31 and like...
Well, did you know we've qualified for group stage participation 19 out of the last 20 years?
And you know, that's like saying, and do you know that we've played in the Scottish top league for the last how many years? It's a load of rubbish because Celtic will always compete in Europe no matter what, unless there's like 20 teams for the Prem that get Champions League. If that ever changed, like, we're always going to get, as you were talking about, we're always going to get it. It's like, so you can't say, but that's a success. Last time we were in the Conference League, we get put in it.
Something that's great on me, we can go back to the COVID. You were talking about the COVID season earlier on, is when I still look at it and go, I gave Celtic £700 sit at home and watch a screen that didn't work. I was part of the campaign. They invited me in. I was doing a few other bits around mental health, a film, and they invited me in. And I even felt the marketing to get the fans back in the stadium was disingenuous, because when I did the interview with them to go on camera, it was certain questions, and it was like, no, but. You know, it was kind of trying to delve deeper. We'll use that bit. That was great. Tell us how you've missed it so much, and they used that as part of the video pack. When I seen the final pack, it was like they're quite clever at their marketing. You'll see it when the season tickets come out, to try and then say guilt trip fans into it, and they did it especially that season with COVID, and it was great. You know, I did feel like, but the club didn't need the money. There was a stat or something today that they actually only lost £100,000 through COVID or something like that. One of the I might be wrong on that, quote me, but that was the figure anyway, compared to other clubs that had lost. I think Rangers had lost a hell of a lot of money. I say I might be wrong, but it was a lower amount, obviously. But then I was like, that's part of their plan as well with their marketing, and they have been along to some of these meetings, and they're always asking fans for that. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? So,
do you know what I'm really shocked at that's not happened yet is this, and I know we'll touch on it, is like the 500 tickets for Celtic and Rangers that they've lost out on for Hampden in 2 weeks. And I'm shocked, and I don't want to say this because I feel like if anybody in that board sees it, they'll be straight on and they'll do it. Do you remember during the COVID days when you could pay an extra bit of money and have your face on your seat? But ask me, there. I'm telling you, at Hampden, those 500 seats on each side's going to have somebody's face on it. Like that. These empty seats will be sold with a cardboard cutout of you and me.
Well,
like
North have put their statement out and suggesting, alleging that they're being sold to hospitality. So the club are thinking with the money on heads again.
I mean, it just the whole thing absolutely stinks. And again, like, I'm genuinely not going to be shocked if like somebody's face is sitting on one of those seats and it's not a real human, just a cardboard cutout of somebody. Like, and you're going to see it on Twitter or something, like somebody going, like somebody's dad sitting on the couch going, "That's me." That's me. That's what you're going to see.
Right. Moving on. We digress on that point. Question 4: how do you intend to modernise the club structure to compete in Europe? You've touched on that a wee bit there. And why are we consistently underprepared for qualification stages? Again, we've sort of touched on that throughout already. Michael Nicholson stated that he did not accept the premise of the question, which I think is quite astonishing. But furthermore, he noted that the club have appointed Paul Tisdale as a head of football operations last year, and created a new role, professional pathway manager, for Darren O'Day. And after Darren O'Day left, the club appointed Sean Maloney to this role. So this does bring us, and I only want to go briefly into this, Callum, because I know you mentioned it already about the getting youth academy products through and what the club would say, and you can understand this. I know that you've made the point, you think it's a bit, not too, you did use the phrase too late, but obviously it can still help from here on out. But we have lost players since the Brexit changes. The club will say that is what that's a step they've taken in terms of the Barrowfield facility to try and get around the not being able to hold on to youth players, right? And you can debate whether that's even possible to be done through the likes of facilities. But the professional pathway manager is a new role. Now, that again is to be seen, I suppose, if over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years we start to see more youth academy products making it into the first team and making a meaningful impact and getting a place in the team. And then we might be able to look back and go, do you know what? You can draw the line in the sand that when we brought in Sean Maloney as pathway manager, or Dan O'Day before him, that things did start to improve. But that I think there will be more to it than that. I think the absence of a pathway manager is not the only thing restricting youth academy products from getting into the first team, is it?
It feels like it's a box ticked. They've got as less boxes as possible, but they've got, right, we've ticked it, we've done that. It says, how do you intend to modernise the club's structure to compete in Europe, and why are we consistently underprepared for qualification stage? The answer is really simple, and he should have been honest. He should have just said, look, we've got a fear of overspending and then not making the Champions League, and then we have a negative at the end of the annual year of our finances. That should have just been open and honest, and people would have had a lot more respect. Do you know what? We can kind of understand that. We don't compete in a league where we make multi-millions like England next door to us. We do get like little droppings of money, so that could have been a very easy answer to give, just an honest and open one. Instead, the club did not accept the premise of the question. And when they come round next May and ask me for my season ticket money, I go, I didn't understand it, lad. Sorry, but I'll see you next year and we'll talk about it. No, like it's just not how it works. There's another point as well. Why is it that every person behind has got to be connected to Celtic? Surely, and look, I don't know Sean Maloney, right? I don't. But is Sean Maloney the best person to produce the youth? Is he the best qualified, right? So he had a really good career at Celtic, had a genuinely good career as well through Aston Villa and stuff in Scotland. But is he the best candidate to make the next step up? Because when I look, and I'm a really big fan of the youth, and I want people to get through, but I've got more hope with our connection with Ayr United now. that our players that are going out on loan have got a better chance of making it through a different club like that than they do through the youth system. I don't believe you can jump from the youth system straight up now. I don't think football in Scotland is heading that way. I think you need to go to a club and do really, really well. You need to go on loan. There's no way you're making that jump from Barrowfield. Like the old, we have this like infectious lover. Look, they're Celtic partner. That's where you'll make it, son. No, it's no. I'm sorry, but it's tell me who's done it, because McGregor is one of the last players, Kieran Tierney, James Forrest, but where's the next one? These guys are getting to the end of their careers. Like McGregor's slowing down. I know he's 32, so he's still got years. I know Kieran Tierney doesn't look the same player due to injuries, but where's the 24-year-old that we've got that's up and coming, like Tony Ralston?
So the big thing is that it's been, Tierney was the last one. It's been nearly 10 years, right? It's been nearly 10 years. But I just want to touch on your point about Maloney there, because I think we disagree slightly on this, because I think people like that who have come through the youth academy and had a good career, I think lend themselves to a position like that. We're going to come back to talking about how Celtic recruit people in a minute to the more important roles and the more important functions in terms of the football operation when we talk about transfer business in just a second. But I think someone like Maloney could be good at that role, and I'm actually surprised that, because he tried to get going in management, didn't really happen for him, but I wonder how he views that role in terms of his career. Like, would he jump at another managerial opportunity, or does he want to work in youth development now?
So do you mean that he's a good person to have because he's lived the dream, he's got to that top tier, so he can put that on to other players?
Yes, what I mean is he has lived the experience of breaking into the first team at a time when the first team was really, really good, but also he's played at the highest level and coached at the highest level, you could say, as part of Roberto Martinez's coaching staff with Belgium, and he's worked with top class players, so I think he's an intelligent guy as well. So I don't think that I fully understand the sense that it's jobs for the boys, and the only people who can work for Celtic are people who have been here before, and like I say, we're going to come back to that. But I think in a role like that, someone like Maloney can do it.
But have we not had ex-players in this position for how long? Johnny Hayes, Darren Dale. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. I don't see them on
they
a
will say that's a new position
basis. Of course they will, but let's be honest, who is the last player to come through the last door? So we've had these players that have been given jobs, like Steve McManus, and again, I'm not having a go at these people, but we originally spoke about world class in everything we do. These people are not the best candidates that Celtic could get. They are easy to fill that position in with somebody that's been here, as a yes man, will get along with it, and that's it. Your question there was, would Sean Maloney leave? So say, for example, if I don't know, I'll go middle, St Johnstone or a Kelly type style team, and go, chat with it. You're right, Sean, I'm looking for you to take the first team. He's jumping at that. Why would you sit at Celtic's academy of under 18s when it's failed? That's the truth. It's failed over the last 10 years. We haven't produced enough players. Whilst we've had dominance in Scotland, you should be able to filter some of these players through. And again, if they are too good, they just get taken away. They just go down south, because context of football has changed now, where it's all about money as quick as you can. It's a short career. I'm not having a go at people for that. If that's your choice, that's your choice. Of course it is. For us fans that would love to live the dream of playing for Celtic, is just to put the Celtic top on and walk out Celtic Park and play for the club. That's our dream. I don't think that dream is in a youth player's mind as such. It is when you're young, but when you get into it and you get used to it, and then somebody like somebody from England comes to chat with you, like Chelsea, Liverpool, Man United, of course you're going to go, because the money, you'll quadruple your wages at the age of 16, 17. Your mum and dad will get a house in London, they'll get a nice car, they'll get everything with it. We cannot compete with that. So that's what I'm saying, it feels a little bit outdated that we've now done this. Just on a quick really tangent, I remember going to Portugal about 10 years ago, and I was in Lisbon at the time, and I remember the taxi driver going this route, and I remember him going by this building, and I looked at it and I went, is that Porto? And I was like, Porto's way up north. And I was like, why is it in Lisbon? It was this massive facility, and he went, we've got this, he was a Benfica fan at the time, but he says, Porto have got this massive sports centre to basically steal all the kids from Lisbon to get them up north, so instead of Benfica and Sporting Lisbon getting them all, they've got this massive hub centre where they can just start cherry picking the youth talent and get them in playing for Porto. And now it's like 10 years later and they've already started doing that, and look at the talent that the Portuguese clubs bring through, and it feels like we're just getting to that stage. And again, football's catching up, but it's now I always feel like we're so many steps behind. And that comes back to Sean Maloney, Johnny Hayes, Stephen McManus. Like, they've all had a gig at it, and who's came through. So it's not working. They're not the best people, and I don't know how good they are. They might be brilliant, but they're not the best candidate, in my opinion, for that role.
Yeah, I want to move us on, because I think the youth academy stuff, you'd be here talking about it all night. There's so many. I mean, there's a managerial responsibility in terms of trying to integrate youth academy products into the team, and there may well have been times throughout the last 10 years where that has been an opportunity, and maybe others where it hasn't. And I know that dealing with the pressure of playing for the Celtic first team is quite unique to comparing what it might be to come through at many other clubs. But I want to bring us, Lee, to the headline quote from the meeting, where the attention did turn to how the club conduct football transfers, including the question, as the chief executive and the CFO directly involved. So there was confirmation as to who values the players and agrees the commercial terms, and Chris Mackay explained that a multidisciplinary approach is taken. This approach is led by the football department, who identify players with the executive team concluding transactions. Now, that's as you think, that's as you would expect it to be. The executive team are the people who negotiate the transfers and get the deals over the line, because that is where the business aspect of it comes in, the legal aspect. There's contracts involved. That is how you'd expect things to go. But there was a question about the football manager sanctioning all signings, and Michael Nicks confirmed that he did. And then there was a pressing question asking why has the manager then referred to some signings as quote unquote club signings. And the headline quote from this entire meeting is Michael Nicholson shrugged his shoulders. Now, what you need to remember is Celtic let these minutes go out, so they didn't see that there was anything wrong with that being the summation of the conclusion of that discussion, that Michael Nicholson didn't know why. He just shrugged his shoulders as to why Brendan Rodgers is saying that some signings have been club signings. Now, one of the frustrating factors about meetings like this is the club say we cannot go into specifics, we can't talk about individual players, and you understand why, because there's personal implications for players. They can't discuss player contracts, player situations. If a player is struggling to settle in the country, they can't go into anything like that, right? But that does mean that you can't come back and go, well, can you tell us about Inamura? Can you tell us about Yamada? Because these are the guys that Brendan Rodgers has alluded to as club signings, as players that will come in and he'll take a look at them, but they'll probably need to go out on loan. And these are guys that are like 23. And you wonder, where are they going to fit in? Michael Nicholson talks about signing players for the short, medium and long term, but should you sign players for the long term? Like, how can you sign a player for the long term? We don't even think the manager's going to be here next year, so who's signing the players for the long term? I mean, the shrug your shoulders thing is just laughable, isn't it?
I would have loved to have been in the room and just to hear the eerie silence, because I think they quickly went on to talk about the players. But I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, but there is an interesting point down here about Paul Tisdale. So he analyses the club's game model with a view to mapping the club's playing style and system with a view to using the data-driven results to identify players. Sounds a lot like the Tony Bloom Hearts thing going on at the moment. Is that so? Is he identifying these players like Emanura? What is this? Is it to play them, or is it to play them for a while and then sell them on, like we have done with other players, and just hope that, you know, like Nicholas Kuhn, they have a good season or a good part of season, and then we sell them on? It just shows that I'm absolute. It proves the disconnect between Rodgers and the board, and there has been a fallout. Obviously, there's been disagreements because he's panicked in that moment because he hasn't got anything else to say. He doesn't have an answer. You know, maybe Rodgers should have been there, and we would have heard what he thought about it. But I'd love to hear someone ask, hopefully in the next press conference, what Rodgers thinks of that.
Well, that will be the first question.
It's got to be.
Probably it'll be tomorrow. Well, no, he's got the opportunity to say whatever he's. I mean, there's been some questions already, even after the transfer window closed, where he thought, well, we've had the September international break. Brendan's just going to come out and say, listen,
and Celtic,
the club will review it, and like, it's fine, we're all on the same page, don't worry about it. And he didn't do that. He did come out quite strongly, so he'll have the opportunity to do that again. But listen, there was talk today, I heard it on the radio, that obviously there's growing discussion that he's not going to sign a new deal, as we all expect, so he will leave Celtic at the end of the season. He's not got much to lose, has he? If he's going to leave the club at the end of the season, I'm not saying he's going to come out swinging in response to that question, but I don't think he necessarily needs to dress it up as much as he otherwise might have if he was going to be here for the longer term.
But this is what I mean by marking your own homework. How have the club let that out? Shrugged your shoulders? Or even, they've not even done their homework, as in, you need to revise for your test tomorrow. Like, you've got to think in your head, right, what am I going to get put under pressure here tomorrow? And these are clever, so-called clever businessmen, not making lots of money and running a really big football club. So you've got to think, right, what am I going to get asked tomorrow? What are the fundamental basics that I need to give back so I can get a bit of pressure off my shoulders and people can understand? And it almost felt like it was just like, you know, that time when you were in high school and you just couldn't be bothered to be one of the subjects, and you knew there was a PowerPoint and you know the teacher's going to pick on you. You're like, oh my, and you go, miss, I didn't do it. I forgot. I played my Xbox last night. Sorry. Do you know what I mean? That's what it just like, shrugged your shoulders. Like, what?
That there is, I agree that's got to be one of the things where the club coming to this meeting should have been better prepared to answer it. And if they're not well prepared enough to answer a question like that, because when it comes to recruitment, and recruitment is the underpinning of all of this, by the way, when it comes to that, they've got to have been prepared for a question of that nature, and the fact that they weren't prepared maybe tells you that the regard that they've got for it, maybe tells you where it's at in their priority list, maybe tells you how much they're really listening, that they didn't come in prepared and they were just willing to go, well, I don't know why the manager says that.
So one point is, why did they even say yes to the meeting when they're going to shrug their shoulders to questions? In my mind, if I was in that position and I accept that, I would then go, right, I need to swing here. I need to swing back at what these questions are going to be. I can't just go shrug my shoulders and be like, well, it's fine, whatever, like, leave it. And that really frustrates me. It's been a bugbear for the last 2 weeks, right, since we've heard these comments. But we're talking about, like, the whole world class point of it, right? If you cannot learn and answer these questions and something really basic and something simple, how do you run a football club to the day-to-day? Now, what we are seeing is Celtic are not run day-to-day. Again, stadium's falling down. It needs a lot of TLC. They keep saying, oh, it's a lot of money. Well, the longer you leave it, the more it's going to cost, because the damaging keeps happening, right? But you see all of this. Then you talk about the youth department. Our feelings are that we're not making European football, so they can't even answer a simple question from a fan. Just a fan media of asking a question. How do you expect them to get us into Champions League qualification stage? How do you expect
just
that?
To answer your question there, I think they took the meeting so that they could say,
is that a box ticked?
We took the meeting.
So it's another box ticked, right? Again, but why would you want to tick that box when you don't give an answer? Like what was I don't understand.
Well, the big problem with the meeting, and I think the big frustration from the supporters groups coming out of it, was that there was no actionable steps. There was no actual to-do list. Nothing was actually happening off of it. It was just like, well, listen, we'll take it on board and we'll get back to you. This again, the same things that Celtic have been saying on these matters for years and years and years. And I know that the next fan meeting is happening tonight. I would have been there. I'd have attended that, but tonight was the only time we could do this video, and the window for making a video about this past meeting was closing rapidly. So I thought it was more important to get this video done tonight. I look forward to hearing an update from the meeting about what the next steps will be from the fan groups. But Lee, I do want to move us on, because we're closing in on an hour now, believe it or not. And the next key point here is about the evaluation of players and how the board go about that. And there's a bit of an explanation there about the different factors at play. But the big thing that jumped out to me from this meeting, and from the Celtic Fan Collective statement that came out before the minutes, was Chris Mackay confirming that the board members would be emailed for final approval. Now, Michael Nicholson and Chris Mackay confirmed that players trading above certain financial values requires board approval. Right, that's completely normal in any business. No one person can just, at a stroke of a pen, spend a ridiculous amount of money. It needs to be signed off by everybody on the board. Right, that's a normal thing. But I think this is where we get to the actual problem. This is where we get right to the heart of the problem here. This is why we can't get deals done in time for Champions League qualifiers. It's why we keep failing against clubs half of our size or less at these stages, right? Because in my head, and this is just my opinion, those certain financial values, as you alluded to earlier, Callum, are okay. If a player goes above £3 million, we need to email all the board members for approval. Now, just for reference, I think Celtic have got 6 non-executive directors, right? Dermot Desmond is one of them, incidentally, who I think a lot of people would take away the inference that his email approval is the most important, which you can understand.
Yeah.
But to me, I said it was inefficient to wait on 6 board members getting back to you. Like they say, people will be aware, the people on the board will be aware of what's going on with X, Y, or Z transfer. But then emails are sent, and like, do all 6 have to get back and say, okay, that increased bid of from 3.5 to 4.5? I know that's way too big a jump for Celtic, but like that increased bid from 3.5 to 3.55. Do all 6 need to get back and say, yes, I agree, and then what happens if one person says, no, I don't agree? And it also raises the question, when in terms of non-football and people making football decisions, and there's coverage there of how they value players, but if it gets into the inbox of a non-executive director, again, some are more powerful than others, and they say, no, I don't agree that Jacob Broom's worth $5 million. Is that it done? Is that it dead?
It's again looking at like a business model that, I don't work in a place where it's that. There's quite high sort of decisions made at the top level, but obviously we're talking about people earning over £1 million a year doing this sort of job. But you have to build resilience into decision making as well. So if Dermot, for instance, like last week, is playing Dunhill Links, and his phone's off or on silent or do not disturb, and
he's always playing somewhere.
He's playing somewhere.
Yeah, there's somebody that aims to be a scratch golfer.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what his game's like, but did see Andy Murray?
Well, if it's like his business, he'll be pish.
Anyway, you have to build resilience in a decision.
His businesses are really good, mate.
I know, because I'm pumping money at the club. It's not because of what he's doing; it's because of us fans.
I don't know a huge amount about business, but you would like to think there's resilience built into that, where if someone is not available or someone's on holiday or we're talking about he's on the golf course, Dermot, trying to get his scratch down to scratch with his golf, that someone else can step in and make a decision on a transfer or even just up in a bid. We're not, and the figures we're talking about doesn't seem to be a lot of money. But to think that it's been done over email and people are not picking them emails up, emails do go into junk boxes and things like that. It just seems a so draconian way of working. Like when we're in the 2025 now, we're in the 90s. It was email when it started. We're still talking about emails and things. There's better ways of communicating. Paul Tisdale as well. I'd like to know where he sits on. He's identifying the players. He obviously knows a little bit about football, I'd imagine, in terms of, well, you'd like to think that he knows the value of a player. He obviously maybe doesn't at this point, but where does he sit in all this?
I mean, again, that comes back to, it would have been helpful if Paul Tisdale could have been at this meeting that's really focused on the football operation. He's the head of football operations. His presence at the meeting, I think, would have been a useful one. I do want to move us on. I will touch briefly. I will just give my opinion on the point around Paul Tisdale's role. It was there is rumour that Paul Tisdale is a connection of Dermot Desmond, right? Now, that doesn't really surprise you, because to work for Celtic you either need to already work there, have previously worked there, or know somebody on the board, right? As you've covered a wee bit, Callum, already.
We're getting there.
So Chris Mackay confirmed that the club spoke with several potential candidates. By the way, we didn't know, nobody knew this role was coming in, this head of football operations, and I think when it was announced there was a lot of merging of different roles, and his remit was quite wide, Paul Tisdale, but the club spoke to several potential candidates. Did you? Aye. But no external recruitment consultancy was appointed. Michael Nix confirmed there was no family or business connection between the head of football operations and Celtic board members, but the individuals had crossed paths previously. I mean, no connection, but had crossed paths previously. Okay. I'm not inferring anything there, by the way, just a strange old way of putting it. Again, I think Paul Tisdale's presence at the meeting would have been useful. Who knows if there is going to be future meetings, if maybe he could be there. to sort of answer questions related to the football operation that maybe weren't adequately answered. Boys, we don't have a great deal of time to go into the tabloid story about Brendan Rodgers, the leak to the Sun about Brendan Rodgers tearing the club apart from the inside and trying to work his way out. Basically, the club have swept that under the carpet and said, listen, we it's done, it's closed. It's a closed matter. We spoke about it at board level. Nobody owned up to it, basically. Brendan Rodgers has agreed it's closed now as well, so there'll be no further. And again, I think there was questions around, well, if Roger Hannah's wrote an article that damages the reputation in some ways of Celtic and certainly of Brendan Rodgers, then surely there's grounds for legal action there. And Michael Nicholson said that they wouldn't take legal action in relation to speculation and that they're busy enough as it is. So are you too busy to do the legal action, or are you saying that it's just speculation? Like, what one is it? I'm not too sure. But let's get back to talking about the football, boys, because we could easily be here to midnight the night trying to cover everything. Celtic do return on Sunday. Callum to face Dundee. We've got the next 6 or 7 games are huge. There's some big ones in there. We start, as I say, away to Dundee, home to Sturm Graz in the Europa League, away to Hearts, which is a big one, the way things have shaped up so far in the league. Then home to Falkirk. Then we have the semi-final at Hampden against Rangers before we face Midtjylland, and then I think we're back to Celtic Park to face Kilmarnock at home. So that's a big run of fixtures. We somehow came out with the points the last time out against Motherwell. Dyson Maeda, a last minute winner, looked for all the world at some stage like we were going to drop points in that game. But do you think, I know that we've performed so poorly so far, do you think that win and the nature of it can have a sort of galvanising effect and can maybe put a spring in the team's step going into Sunday in these games?
I mean, I want to say yeah, but I don't think it will. I think we're going to see a tough game on Sunday. I think Stephen Presley, I really enjoy actually listening to him. I mean, I don't know if I'd enjoy him if he was my manager.
You must be the only person in the world that enjoys listening to him.
Oh, is that right? Aye. Well, just you see on Sunday. No, I don't know, there's something just funny to listen to. But no, I think it will be hard going up there. Like, games are always hard when you come back from international football. It's never easy. The team are coming from all over the world to gel back. Dyson Maeda didn't play any minutes due to an injury that he got. Alistair Johnson probably won't start because he's come back from injury. Liam Scales had a bereavement, so he's not played any minutes either for Ireland. Carter Vickers travelled around with America, didn't get any minutes either. So there's 4 players that should probably start the game that have been away that haven't had any minutes. So I think it will take one of these games where it will be a little bit of trying to nick the win. I mean, Celtic will dominate the ball, of course, though. The midfield worries me again. I kind of get away from that fact that the midfield, there's something wrong there, and I'm not surprised that today it came out with Bobby Clark coming out that Celtic are close to getting a £6 million deal done, and that must be the Michael Nicholson using the fax machine for the summer, trying to get it done on summer. No, it's just went through, the faxes just went through. It's like, oh, Bobby Clark's coming. That's how it broke, right? That's how with the Brendan Rodgers stuff and all that against the internal review, he's still sending through the fax machine. He's like, we're too busy, lads. I'll wait on the old fax.
Well, I was just going to say, does it not tell you how under pressure they are that they've managed to get a story out about somebody signing in January and this is only October?
It's because it was done for last May. That's how I just checked his junk box, as you're saying. He's like, oh, it's been accepted, lads. Get that out to the press, Roger Hannah, get it out. So I do think these next 7 games are monumental. I think they pave the way for our season. I've not got a great feeling, if I'm brutally honest with you. I don't. I hope Celtic can win all of the games. The Europa League is a bit of a sideshow for me. I want to do well, but with me taking the stance of not going to the games, I still want Celtic to win, of course, and I'll still watch the game. But Celtic really need to get probably 6 points for the next 2 Europa League games, which is difficult because Midtjylland won away to Forest, didn't they, 3-2? Before that, I thought that should be probably 3 points on the road for Celtic, but I think that'll be difficult. I watched Sturm Graz against Rangers. I actually thought they were alright. They've got 3 or 4 players. Can't remember the boy's name, but they've got a big powerhouse in the middle of the park who I would love to have at Celtic. When you see him, brilliant player. He's number 21, really good player. So I think that's going to be a tougher game than people will expect on Thursday. Then you jump right into Hearts. extremely difficult game as well. Like, do you prioritise one over the other, Thursday or Sunday? If Celtic don't get a win, you can kiss Europa League goodbye, because the next 4 games after the next 2, Celtic are going to need 11 points to get into the top 24, and we're only on a point now, so you're going to need to beat Strumgratz to get onto 4. You're going to need to get even if you get a point away to Midtjylland, you're on 5. You're still going to need 6 points probably out of the next 4 games with Roma, Bologna. There's some right tough games in there. Feyenoord away, like, bye-bye to that. No chance. Like, I just don't think it's going to happen. So Celtic really need to try and get 6 points if they want to progress. And again, is that another failure if they don't get out the top 24? Or is it a success that we made the Europa League by default? Kairat Almaty, they'll probably shovel that in the summer review that we'll get, and it's another internal review. So, like, there's really big games, and then again with the Rangers game on the horizon as well. That's a really difficult one to judge. I know the Green Brigade came out with their statement, and the boys Celtic came out as well. Obviously they're not going to the game. There's going to be a real weird atmosphere at that type of game, and with Rangers not having a manager in place, it looks like they're getting Kevin Muscat, so he's not coming to the end of November to finish the Chinese League. Rangers are going to play these next 7-8 games with themselves without a manager at the helm, so you wonder what reaction they'll get. Will that have an incentive? Will that boost them for our game? I'm not sure. So there's a lot of things that are going to be covered in the next couple of weeks, and it's massive for Celtic. I'd love to go to Dens Park and smash Dundee and get a real good feel factor to be like, right, we've actually maybe turned the corner. But it almost feels like when Celtic have been given that opportunity, somehow they managed to make it extremely difficult for themselves, and I could probably see that happening. I think they'll win Sunday, but I think it'll be closer than people expect.
Lee, I just want to get your thoughts, I suppose, on the 2 big domestic games as they stand out. Hearts at Tynecastle. I mean, tough game at any time. We obviously trail them at the minute in the league. And the semi-final at Hampden, which I think, we haven't beaten Rangers since last September, and Rangers have been in a dire mess for most of that. Now, as Callum's just alluded to there, they might not have a manager in place, a permanent manager in place when we play them at Hampden, and if we can't beat Rangers in this state, you've got to ask the question, when are we going to beat them?
I think we've mentioned a lot on the channel since the start of the season, really. When was the last time we won a big game? I mean, really, in the next 7, Rodgers needs to earn his sort of money now, because he's well known for coming alive in these big games, making tactical changes. He needs to find something a little bit different. I said after one of the last games I attended, we did FTR, I said that he needs to find a way, maybe of setting the team up a little bit different. He did it in one of the second halves of the European games. He went 3 at the back. Maybe that's something to look at. We're not going to be able to address anything really in terms of the team, I think, obviously till January. In terms of the right hand side, it is a huge problem. I think Hearts away, I think you really need to get through those first 20 minutes of the game. Settle in. Hearts, I've got fair play to them. They've got players in form, and they've got all across the park. They seem to have a good width. They brought a boy in for a couple of million, I think, maybe 1.8, who's yet to really play, but he looks promising. He's going to come in probably in the next couple of weeks, so he might be in for playing against Celtic. But it's always a tough place to go. I just worry about our mentality going into that and how fragile we'll look at the back. Alistair Johnson come back will be a huge, Colby Donovan's been exceptional for his age coming in. Maybe he's someone that could be a Champions League player down the line. We'll see if we're back there. He's done well, but Johnson, we need Johnston back in. We need Johnston back in. In the Rangers game, I think it's a lottery, because I think Stephen Smith's taken over till Muscat comes in. It's a one-off game. Cup games are always difficult. We just need to see something. I'm with Callum. I think the midfield's a huge worry. I think we've been okay defensively. The wide positions have been left width has been okay. The right still a bit of a question mark, but it's the midfield that's just not working for me. So I think there'll be problems that need to be addressed, and be interesting to see what the manager says tomorrow. I think a lot of the focus will be on this sort of stuff, but I want him to tell him about the team and how he's going to change it, and what he's been doing in the last 2 weeks, apart from being photographed with every single person under the sun. He's been in Ireland and all this. I want to see him working on the team and making it better, and the challenges that we've got with Cal McGregor at the moment, out of form, and who plays alongside him. So it's going to really shape the season the next couple of months before we get into even looking at December and the heavy schedule we'll have them in Europe. So big games, but exciting, but I'm nervous.
Just a really quick one. What is your three midfielders quickly for Sunday? Pick three. Who are you picking?
I would. Oh jeez, I would go. Oh, it's even a struggle saying this, but McGregor, Engels, and Hatate.
Yeah, Engels, Hatate. For me, I'd probably go McGregor, Bernardo, and Balikwisha. I'd put him in the 10. I'd play him, and I say that because it's a shout out to Hamish, because Hamish was the one that was saying this, but he's played a lot there for Royal Antwerp. Even the start of the season, he played the 10 role.
Sort of.
He played in that a lot more. I don't know if he is an out-and-out winger. When you watch him, he doesn't feel to me as if he's getting by somebody. It doesn't really feel. I feel like he's somebody that can take the ball in the half turn, like a Tom Rogic, and then create.
Even for his goal against Motherwell, he got in that little bit of pocket of space. And
that's what I mean. So he's not really a winger. He's not hogging the touchline, saying, right, give me the ball and I'll take somebody on. He's obviously wanting that ball in that position to turn, and then he just drives it across the Maeda. I think you take a gamble and you put somebody like that on. Who's your three?
You can find out my three in the starting 11 prediction for the Dundee game, which will be with you on Saturday. That concludes, boys, a bumper 1 hour plus episode. That's maybe the longest episode we've ever done, by the way. So a big thank you to the boys for coming over so we could get this recorded tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. Give us your thoughts on it in the comments below, and I will see you, like I say, on that starting 11 prediction on Saturday. Thank you.